साड़ियों का जैसे आपने इतिहास शुरू किया,
What are the 5 iconic sarees that everyone should have?
what are the right weaves and right prints which actually define the Indian traditional?
Inspiration can come from nature, inspiration can come from scriptures, inspiration can come from literature.
आजकल बहुत सारे जो है फेक हैंडलूम्स भी बेचते हैं, उसमें डिफरेंस कैसे पता करें?
The saree that we see now with all the paraphernalia, with the blouse, with the petticoat or whatever, that came much later. They were called pleats like the tail of a fish. Woman in a sari with flowers and bindi is actually a senior ISRO scientist who is working in that outfit. If you look into the history of our queens, they have fought battles wearing a sari. पहले क्या होता था? You had to form a cooperative. So the central government would disperse and weaving is actually a state subject. आपको अगर सब्सिडी चाहिए तो पहले तो आपको डायरेक्ट नहीं मिलेगी. वो कोऑपरेटिव को पैसे कौन देगा? उस स्टेट का एपेक्स कोऑपरेटिव. Soon people found out that they could just a family, if they are politically connected.
उत्तिष्ठ जागृत प्राप्य वरान्न बोध. Arise, awake and strive for knowledge. आज से कुछ साल पहले तक जब हम किसी बिजनेस मीटिंग या इवेंट में जाते थे तो पूरा रूम वेस्टर्न अटायर से भरा होता था. Men and women preferred wearing business suits to any event or business meeting. लेकिन आज कुछ वर्षों से इसमें बदलाव आना शुरू हुआ है. Now, when you enter a business meeting or an event, आपको वहां अमूमन महिलाएं साड़ी में दिखेंगी. जी, sarees have come back into popular imagination. Youth is picking up on sarees big time. ऐसा क्या हुआ है कि पिछले कुछ वर्षों में हमारा साड़ियों में इंटरेस्ट वापस से जागा है? साड़ी हमारे कल्चरल हेरिटेज और आइडेंटिटी का एक अभिन्न हिस्सा रही है. ऐसा क्या हुआ कि हिस्टोरिकली इसमें परिवर्तन आया और अब हम वापस से एक रिसर्जेंस देख रहे हैं साड़ियों में इंटरेस्ट को लेकर. अगर आप भी साड़ी पहनना और साड़ी के बारे में और जानना चाहते हैं, अगर आप चाहते हैं कि साड़ियों में क्या वीव्स और क्या थ्रेड वर्क आप पसंद करते हैं और उसका उद्गम किस क्षेत्र से हुआ है, तो आज का ये एपिसोड जरूर देखें और एंड तक देखें, क्योंकि आज हमारे साथ जो पर्सनालिटी जुड़ रही हैं वो इंडियन हेरिटेज, इंडियन टेक्सटाइल्स और हमारी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी को लेकर काफी मुखर रही हैं और बहुत पॉपुलर रही हैं अपने एक कैंपेन नो बिंदी नो बिजनेस के लिए. नो बिंदी नो बिजनेस एक ऐसा कैंपेन था जिसने बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज को भारत में हिला के रख दिया. उसके बारे में, साड़ियों के बारे में और अपनी इस सिविलाइजेशनल हेरिटेज के बारे में और जानेंगे आज के इस एपिसोड में विद शिफाली वैद्य जी. लेट्स डाइव राइट इनटू दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन विद शिफाली जी. शिफाली जी, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है द इंडिक पेन उत्तिष्ठ भारत सीरीज में. आज हम चाह रहे थे कि हम इस वार्तालाप की शुरुआत आपकी पर्सनल जर्नी से करें. साड़ियों को लेकर मेरा भी एक न्यू फाउंड लव रहा है और मैं जानती हूँ कि आप साड़ियों को लेकर काफी समय से काफी वोकल रही हैं. यू बीन प्रमोटिंग इंडियन थ्रेड, इंडियन वीव्स. थोड़ा सा बताइए कि ये रोमांस कहाँ से शुरू हुआ?
आपने बोला कि sarees are your new found love. For me, sarees have been my old love. Because my mom used to have a very good collection of sarees, and in those days they were all hand woven sarees. So every month it was a ritual for her to open her cupboard, remove her sarees, air the silk sarees, redo the folds. And that used to be our mother-daughter time. I used to love those. I still remember, I have this amazing vivid visual of afternoon light coming in from the window in our Goa house, and there would be a chatai, and my mom would put all the saris in the chatai, and as she would refold them, she would talk more to herself than to me, but she would talk about the saris and she would weave her memories, and she would say that this sari was bought for me by my brother on my graduation. This sari, when we got married, when Papa went to Delhi, he bought it. This sari was gifted by my mother-in-law when I was pregnant for the first time. So every sari had a memory. She didn't really know or care about the weaves. It's just that those saris were repositories of memories for her. Every sari had a story, and I think the stories appeal to my child mind. And I used to love those couple of hours that we used to spend in that room, just going over saris. And every time I heard similar stories, right? But I never got bored because every time I got something out of it. And I used to think my mom was also a very beautiful woman. So I used to think, look at her and say, okay, someday I'm going to wear her sari. Someday I'm going to look like her. Someday I'm going to be as graceful. I don't know if I succeeded in that or not. But that kind of started my love with saris. And even today, actually, I have some of my mom's saris, which I very much treasure. In fact, her engagement sari, the sari started to give away, but the border and the palla were still very nice. So I cut them out and I cut out even the booties and painstakingly transferred it onto a similar colored yardage. So I can still say that I've got my mother's engagement sari, which is very, very precious to me.
This is such an important input, Shefali ji. Even I, have had these vivid memories of my mom, and even till today, whenever I visit her, the first thing we start talking about is her wardrobe, and sh- those were the times when I think women used to take a lot of interest in preserving those V's, because I think थोड़ा तो कमियों का दौर था, तो जो भी मिलता था उसको लेकर they used to be very very cautious. और आज भी मेरे पास भी कई साड़ियाँ हैं, आपने अभी क्योंकि शेयर किया ये, तो मेरे पास भी मेरी आधी वार्डरोब शायद मेरी मदर की साड़ीज़ की है। और उस समय की जो साड़ियाँ थीं, सरप्राइज़िंगली वो अभी भी सस्टेन कर रही हैं। मतलब जो सिल्क है, जो कढ़ाई है, जो मम्मी मुझे बताती हैं कि आज तो तुम लोगों की ये जो गोल्डन बॉर्डर्स हैं, वो वैसे नहीं रहे जैसे हमारे ज़माने में आते थे, तो उस तरह की कन्वर्सेशंस हमारी आज भी होती हैं।
You're really right. Actually, for my wedding sari, I wore 2 9 saris for my wedding. So in the Goan style, like जब rituals शुरू हुए थे, so I actually wore my grandmother's sari, my grandmother's Banarsi, which at that point of time was probably 80 years old. Now it's crossed a century. It is a genuine Banarsi with kadwa booties and proper silver jari, and you can feel it. See, the test is the jari. If you put it against your cheek, if it's got real metal, then it will always feel cool, no matter how hot the day is, because it's metal, right? And nowadays you have synthetic jari, obviously, so it doesn't really matter when you touch it with your cheek or not. But when I wore that sari, I was actually channelizing 3 generations, 3 generations of love, 3 generations of continuity, 3 generations of culture, 3 generations of cultural preservations, and more than anything, 3 generations of emotions. And I could feel that. I still feel very emotional when I talk about that sari. And my wedding photographs are very precious to me because of that. Now, probably after 125 years, the sari is probably not in the condition to be worn as comfortably because there is always the fear that it might get frayed. But when I wore it, I had this constant feeling running through my mind that I am wearing an heirloom, I am wearing a piece of tradition, and more than that, I am wearing the love of 3 generations before me.
How beautiful. In fact, that again reminds me of my nani's sari that I have. Shefali ji, but in between, saris had gone out of fashion. And suddenly जो है हमारा, मैं देखती हूँ, और अगर हम एक मापदंड लें, तो यूथ जब कोई फैशन पिक करता है, दैट इज व्हेन यू फील दैट यस इट हैज बिकम पार्ट ऑफ द पॉपुलर इमेजिनेशन. और अगर आज आप देखें, a lot of young people have started adorning saris. Though a lot of it is not really hand woven, but at least there is a huge interest in wearing saris again. और आप एक कैटलिस्ट रही हैं इस कल्चरल चेंज में, इस माइंडसेट चेंज में. ये बताइए, साड़ी हमारी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी का अभिन्न अंग क्यों है?
देखो, पहली बात तो ये है कि हैंड वोवन टेक्सटाइल्स हमारी आइडेंटिटी का अभिन्न अंग है, बिकॉज राइट फ्रॉम द सिंधु सरस्वती सिविलाइजेशन डेज, our ancestors knew how to weave yarn from cotton, how to weave yarn from wool, how to weave yarn from wild silk, how to weave yarn from linen, and they used to know how to weave textiles out of it. And not only that, so they knew the art of cultivation, they knew the art of taking out the yarn from that cultivated product, and they knew how to weave a textile out of it, but they also knew how to dye it and how to pattern it, which is really amazing. And I'm talking here about at least 3500 BC or before. So at least for 5,500 years or before that, we knew all these things. And how do we know that? Because when you go through the artifacts that have been found in मोहनजोदारो और हड़प्पा, आपको वहां पे एक वाज मिला था, तो उसके वाज के बेस पे कुछ कॉटन स्क्रैप्स फिलामेंट्स मिले थे. वो फिलामेंट्स कलर्ड थे, they were colored with madder. So we know that our ancestors knew how to use vegetable dyes. They knew how to use mordants. Mordants वो होता है जो कलर को फास्ट करता है. नहीं तो वेजिटेबल कलर्स जब आप यूज करते हो तो वो एक धोने में वो चला जाएगा. तो उसको कलर फास्ट करने के लिए यू नीड अ मॉडर्निंग एजेंट like there is a wood called sapanwood which was used as a moderating agent. Nowadays they use alum, but our ancestors knew how to do that, and they knew patterning, because if you see the priest king statuette that was found in Harappa or Mohenjo-daro, which is now in a museum in Pakistan, you see that that figurine actually has a shawl on his right shoulder, and that shawl has a trifoil pattern, which is proof that our people knew how to make a fabric look beautiful. Now we don't know that trefoil pattern, was it block printed, was it woven into the fabric, was it embroidered? We don't know because it's a statuette, and cloth obviously hasn't survived because it is it's a biological product, so obviously it has not survived thousands of years, but the scraps have survived. And not only that, even in the same excavations they found needles, they found spindles, and they found parts of the loom, which have ample proof that there used to be factories. And not only that, those people were so sophisticated that weaving textiles was a household thing, yes, but people also wove textiles for commercial use. As in, there are areas where large number of these loom parts and needles have been found, which basically tells you that it's a commercial center which was actually weaving clothes for other people, not just for themselves. I think it's really remarkable.
Absolutely. Two very important points emerge out of what you've just shared. एक तो हम scientifically we were very advanced.
Yes.
And secondly, I think, environment friendly. Very environment friendly in whatever we did, even the kind of clothes that we wore and the patterns and the weaves and the natural dyes जो आजकल वापस fashion में आ रहे हैं, आपको ज़्यादा महंगे बेचे जाते हैं. Very interesting. लेकिन इसी से एक बात ये इमर्ज होती है कि which does it also mean that industrialization played a major role in killing a lot of these?
We'll
Before that?
We'll come to that. Actually, the British killed this art, and they did it very systematically, but we'll come to that later. Till British rule, even after Islamic rule, handloom weaving had largely survived. It has changed shape. It has the business had degraded somewhat, but I'll come to that. But the systematic destruction of India's handloom industry is a gift of the British colonial rule. No two ways about it. So we're talking about the history of the sari, right? So sari, dhoti, veshti, these are all unstitched garments that are still in existence in Bharat. Now, India is not the only culture. Bharat is not the only land where people wore unstitched garments. If you go and look at the old Egyptians, or if you look at the old Greek statues, or if you look at the old Roman paintings or statues, you will know that they all wore unstitched clothing. Even if you go to South America and if you see the local cultures, you will see that everybody initially obviously only wore unstitched clothing. Those were draped around you. And draped cloths, especially out of cotton or thin silk, were very suitable for India's weather, because most of the year, most of the parts of Bharat have a very hot and humid climate, right? So it makes sense to wear cotton loose garments which you can drape and which work as a multiple use garment. For example, even today, if you go to Assam, you will find people who are wearing a gamcha around their neck. Now that gamcha is not just a showpiece. That gamcha also works to wipe your sweat when you feel sweaty. When you are going and working into the field, or when you are walking on the road, and if you feel the sun gets too much for you, then you cover your hair with the gamcha. When you want to sit somewhere and there is no place for you to sit, you just bichhao the gamcha and you sit there. So those were the multiple uses. Even women, when they wore this hands-free 9-yard drapes and they draped their palla around their waist, that palla also acted as a bag. So when you, even today, if you go to rural India and you see women wearing 9-yard saris, and they go to buy vegetables, not many of them carry a bag. They will just take it in their palla and they will just tuck it in. So and your hands are free. So your hands are carrying a baby or something else, and you're carrying your shopping inside your sari. It is a very practical thing. The sari that we see now with all the paraphernalia, with the blouse, with the petticoat or whatever, that came much, much later. But the sari as an unstitched garment that was draped by both women and men, men called it dhoti and women called it sari, has been in India for thousands of years now. And you can see that in all the sculptures. If you see the Didarganj Yapshi, for example, you will see that when the way the sari is draped, and those are very beautiful pleats, and those pleats were also very artistically described. You know, they were called pleats like the tail of a fish, pleats like the trunk of an elephant, and there were ways of draping. Even today, there are people in India who are draping experts who take classes that you can drape a sari in 50 different ways or whatever. And this has survived despite so many disruptions, despite so many attacks on the attire. That I think is a really amazing, remarkable story. Unfortunately, in between, and I wouldn't say that the sari is back with a bang now. It is certainly making its appearance back in boardrooms. But now, if you go to colleges, and I go to a lot of colleges and talk to young women, especially in professional colleges, business colleges, medicine colleges, architecture, or whatever. And there I almost always conduct an experiment. I show the girls two pictures, one with a woman in a Western formal attire, like a suit, business suit, and a woman in a sari. Not like one of your Bollywood blingy saris, but a traditional woman in a traditional hand-woven sari. And I usually ask them, ki, look at these two pictures and tell me what comes to your mind. What are the adjectives that you would choose? So almost invariably, the girls will tell me that the lady with the business suit is modern, what they call modern, and the lady in the traditional sari with a bindi, with hair tied with flowers or whatever, is traditional. So this image has been created largely by media, largely by advertisements, largely by what is happening in movies, that to be modern, you have to wear a Western pantsuit, otherwise nobody will respect you. And if you wear a sari, that to a traditional sari, in a traditional way, you tie your hair, if you wear a bindi, then you are, in Marathi they call kakubai, you know, behenji, basically. You're very, very old fashioned and traditional, whatever. So then I tell them who those women are. The woman in the suit is a model which is used for the advertisement of a business institute or whatever. But the woman in a sari with flowers and bindi is actually a senior ISRO scientist who is working in that outfit. And then I ask them, so now you tell me who is modern or who is traditional. And then I tell them that tradition or modernity is here. It's not in your attire. What? Exactly. And if you look into our history and if you look into the history of our queens, they have fought battles wearing a sari. Jhansi Ki Rani wore a 9-yard sari and rode horses. Similarly, there have been so many other queens who have fought battles wearing saris and they never said, oh, the sari is too much to wear, oh, I can't manage it, oh, it is so difficult or whatever.
Shefali ji, थोड़ा सा step back लेते हैं. I know that there is a lot more that needs to be done for changing the mindset and our view towards how we dress up. लेकिन साड़ियों का जैसे आपने इतिहास शुरू किया, कम से कम 5,500 साल पुराना इतिहास है. If we say go from north to south, east to west of Bharat, ancient Bharat, कितने किस्म के weaves या थ्रेड वर्क्स रहे होंगे या ब्लॉक प्रिंट्स या जो भी नेचुरल वेज थे हमें साड़ी बनाने के, कितने तरह के ये वो रहे होंगे, आर्ट क्राफ्ट्समैनशिप रही होगी, और उसमें कितने बचे हैं उस पर बाद में आएंगे. लेकिन नॉर्थ से साउथ, ईस्ट से वेस्ट जो एंशिएंट भारत था, उसमें कितनी किस्म की साड़ियाँ और ट्रेडिशनल
टेक्सटाइल्स
है.
किसी ने डॉक्यूमेंटेशन तो नहीं किया है हाउ मच ऑफ विच वी हैव लॉस्ट, बट व्हाट वी हैव उससे अगर अनुमान लगाया जा सकता है जो बचा है उसके हिसाब से, तो मैं कह सकती हूँ कि वी वुड हैव प्रोबेबली हैड लिटरली thousands of different ways of weaving a textile, of doing motifs on it. See, basically the technique of handloom weaving is essentially the same. The technique of power loom weaving is also the same. There is a weft, there is a warp, and they kind of sort of get together to form the textile, right? So उसमें rocket science नहीं है. What is different is what is the border that is used. What are the ways the motifs are used in it? Whether the tie, whether the dhaga, whether the thread is dyed before, like the sari that I'm wearing, Sambalpuri, in which the yarn is dyed before it is woven, and then it is aligned properly when it is on the loom. Whereas in बांधनी में उल्टा होता है. ब्लॉक प्रिंट में फैब्रिक ऑलरेडी बना बनाया होता है, उसके ऊपर ब्लॉक प्रिंट करके पैटर्निंग होती है. एम्ब्रॉयडरी में फैब्रिक बनाया बनाया होता है, उसमें कढ़ाई से, नीडल और थ्रेड से कोई काम करता है. सो ऑल दीज आर वेरिएशंस, बट उसकी वेरिएशंस अभी जितनी है, अभी भी भारत में आपको कम से कम, अगर आप छोटे मोटे क्लस्टर्स देखेंगे तो आपको कम से कम 80 to 100 varieties, different varieties of textiles मिलेंगे, which are uniquely called कि यहाँ के उड़ीसा में ही, उड़ीसा में भी संबलपुर is a weaving cluster, नोआपटना is a weaving cluster, गोपालपुर is a weaving cluster, then कोटपाड करके, that's the only tribal sari of Odisha actually, that is there, that is a different weaving cluster. So केवल ओडिशा में कम से कम आपको 10 different types के weave मिलेंगे. ऐसे अगर आप हर स्टेट के काउंट करोगे, कुछ अब एक्सटिंक्ट हो रहे हैं, कुछ हो चुके हैं, those some weaves are now very rare, but even today you can find at least 80 different types of textiles.
वाओ. और जहाँ तक मेरी इंफॉर्मेशन या नॉलेज है वो ये है कि weaves and thread work and textile was also a family kind of business. I mean in the sense एक family पूरी generation जो है उसमें लगी रहती थी, पिता अपने पुत्र को सिखाते थे, फिर आगे वो generation to generation वो skill pass on होती.
Yes, even now it is the same case. If you look at the people who are employed in the handloom industry, you will see that we only see the weaver, right? And nowadays वो बड़े रोने वाले stories आते हैं, support poor weavers, you know, पूरा Instagram and social media is full of unscrupulous women who basically pitch their business ideas by creating a sob story about the weavers. That is another point anyway. But if you see the weaving industry, handloom industry, you will see that the final stage is the weaver actually working on the loom. लेकिन उससे पहले उसको स्पिंडल्स बनाने पड़ते हैं, उसको वॉर्प बड़े इस पे चढ़ाना पड़ता है, कपड़े को डाई करना पड़ता है, डाई करने के बाद उसको स्टार्च करके उसकी कोम्बिंग करनी पड़ती है. All of these stages are usually done by people from the weavers family, and पूरी फैमिली उसमें लगी होती है. कोई थाई पे हैंडरिल कर रहा होता है धागा, कोई स्पिंडल पे धागा चढ़ा रहा होता है, कोई वॉर्पिंग कर रहा होता है, कोई स्टार्च बना रहा होता है, and finally there is your weaver guy who actually sits on the guy or girl. There are women weavers also. In fact, there is a very high number of women weavers, and it is one skill that can be done from home. So when you're talking about work from home, work life balance, जो आजकल पोस्ट कोविड हम बड़े टर्म्स उछालते रहते हैं ना कि वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस होना चाहिए, वर्क फ्रॉम होम करने की सुविधा होनी चाहिए, तो ये सब तो इस हैंडलूम इंडस्ट्री में सदियों से था. कोई जाता नहीं था बाहर. अगर आप आज भी आप संबलपुर के पास में बारपल्ली करके जगह है जहाँ पे ये साड़ियाँ बनती हैं संबलपुरी, तो वहां पे अगर आप जाएंगे तो आपको घर घर में लूम दिखेगा, और ऐसा होता है कि लिविंग रूम में लूम होता है. अच्छा. हर घर के. And both the husband and wife, they know how to weave. So either they have two separate looms, or they have just one loom and they take turns. और उसके बीच में the flow of life चलता रहता है. जैसे I had gone to the house of a weaver couple, both of them are national award winners, भगवान मेहर and कलावती मेहर. तो जब मैं उनके साथ almost 4-5 घंटा बिताया मैंने, तो ये जो 4-5 घंटे मैं उनके साथ बोल रही थी, तो I could see that it is not like, you know, they were having a exclusive business meeting with me in a conference room or whatever. मैं उनके living room में बैठ के उनके साथ गप्पे मार रही थी, and their life was continuing. बीच बीच में वो किचन में कुछ काम चल रहा था, so कलावती जी would come and tie the धागा for about 10 minutes. then जाके वो छाल के वो वापस आती थी. उनके हस्बैंड उनको कोई मिलने आता था तो उनसे बात करते थे, फिर वो जाके कुछ सामान लाना है घर के लिए तो साइकिल पे बाहर जाके वो ग्रोसरीज लेके आते थे, या फिर वो किचन में जाके अगर वो कुछ कॉम्प्लेक्स काम कर रही है तो वो किचन में जाके उसको जो भी कुक हो रहा है उसको चेक करके आते थे। फिर उनका ग्रैंड चाइल्ड वहां पे खेलते खेलते आता था, तो वो काम करते करते एक तरफ से अपने ग्रैंड चाइल्ड के साथ खेलते थे। तो ये जो सारा दैट फ्लूइडिटी ऑफ मोशन था कि घर का काम भी चल रहा है, रिश्ते भी निभाए जा रहे हैं, जीने का जो डेली कश्मकश जो होती है उसको भी करा जा रहा है और काम भी करा जा रहा है, बहुत क्रिएटिव काम करा जा रहा है। एंड व्हाट इज मोस्ट अमेजिंग इज इन बिटवीन ऑल दिस डिस्ट्रप्शंस उनका फोकस कहीं पे भी नहीं हट रहा था। दैट आई फाउंड रियली
मेन
अमेजिंग।
काम खराब नहीं हो रहा था
नहीं
जैसे आज
नहीं खराब नहीं हो रहा था, एग्जैक्टली। और वो ठीक है 5 मिनट किचन में जाके अंदर आई, शी वुड सिट ऑन द लूम and continue the work as if the flow had not got disrupted at all. And it was like meditation when you actually saw her work, because it requires complete mind-body
you
coordination.
can't just miss one rhythm.
Exactly.
Rhythmic
और आपके पाँव पेडल पे चल रहे होते हैं, आपके हाथ शटल इधर उधर कर रहे होते हैं, आपका दिमाग वो कैलकुलेट कर रहा होता है कि कितने नॉट के बाद डिजाइन बदलेगी या कलर बदलेगा या कहाँ से कट होगा. So all of these things you are doing at the same time, and there is a lot of poetry in it. So it's like, you know, it's like a painting basically. कि खिड़की से एकदम स्लैंटिंग लाइट आ रही है शाम की और लूम पे बैठ के वो वीव कर रहे हैं, बीच बीच में अपने नाती के साथ बात कर रहे हैं, कोई हंस रहा है पीछे, you know, the daily little sweet sour things of life. It's just was so amazing to see.
शायद हमने अपने काम को भी देखने का नजरिया बदल दिया और उसकी वजह से ये जो हम लाइफ की जो छोटी छोटी खुशियां काम करते करते पा लेते थे अब वो स्ट्रेस में बदल गई हैं क्योंकि हम शायद घर से दूर रहते हैं, बच्चों से दूर रहते हैं। लेकिन कमिंग बैक टू द ट्रेडिशन, आपने एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट बात बीच में बहुत छोटे से समय के लिए कही, बट एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट बात कही कि ये इसमें से कई लोग अपना ये प्रोफेशन जो ट्रेडिशनल प्रोफेशन था वो छोड़ चुके हैं। डू वी से दैट a lot of it has died down, a lot of it is continuing to die? इसके पीछे कारण क्या है?
देखिए, इसकी अगर आप हिस्ट्री में जाएं तो यू विल अंडरस्टैंड दैट टू बी सक्सेसफुल इन लाइफ सबको, आपको, मुझे, किसी को भी पैसा भी चाहिए होता है, प्रेस्टीज भी चाहिए होता है इन एनी प्रोफेशन, राइट? इफ यू गेट ओनली मनी एंड यू डोंट गेट प्रेस्टीज देन योर descendants will probably not want to continue that profession. If you have only prestige but पैसा नहीं है आपके पास तो आप वो कंटिन्यू कर ही नहीं पाएंगे, 1-2 जनरेशन में आप छोड़ देंगे, आप कुछ और करेंगे। तो अगर हम अपने इतिहास की बात जब करते हैं तो हम अपने बुनकरों के पास अगर उनका हम इतिहास देखें तो चाणक्य लिखते हैं अर्थशास्त्र में कि वीवर्स के गिल्ड होते थे उस जमाने में, मौर्य काल में, भारत में, प्राचीन भारत में, और गिल्ड्स फुल्ली ऑटोनोमस होते थे। मतलब वो जो वीवर्स का जो यूनियन होता था उसके पास अधिकार था कि क्या वीव करें, कब वीव करें, कैसे वीव करें, कितना वीव करें, उसकी कीमत कितनी रखें। और मान लो अगर राजा को भी कपड़ा चाहिए तो राजा आदेश नहीं दे सकता था कि मुझे इस तारीख को इतने इतने मीटर कपड़ा बना के दे दो। उसका एक प्रोसीजर होता था कि पहले जाके राजा वीवर को कुछ गिफ्ट देगा, उसका सम्मान करेगा, उसके बाद उसको पर्पस बताएगा कि मुझे विवाह के लिए ये वस्त्र चाहिए, मुझे मंदिर जाने के लिए वस्त्र चाहिए, मुझे भगवान के लिए वस्त्र चाहिए। और एक प्रोसेस होती थी, एक गिव एंड टेक होता था, एक म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट होता था। और पैसे तो मिलते ही थे बिकॉज हैंडवर्क वाज वेरी हाईली वैल्यूड एंड देयर वाज नो कंपटीशन फ्रॉम मशीन्स, राइट? हैंडवर्क वाज द ओनली थिंग अवेलेबल फॉर यू। सो तब पैसा भी था, प्रेस्टीज भी था। फिर जब, और मैं बड़े बड़े, आई एम सिंप्लीफाइंग इट, ऑब्वियसली द रियल ट्रूथ इज फार मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स एंड फार मोर non-linear, but I cannot condense thousands of years of history in, like, you know, in half an hour. So I am just cutting it short. So that was one stage. Then came the Islamic rule. Islamic rule में क्या हुआ? The people who ruled India, they brought their own artistic influences. So vocabulary of weaving changed. पहले जो हमारे मोटिव्स थे उसमें एनिमल मोटिव्स बहुत लिबरली यूज किया करते थे। जो माइथोलॉजिकल एनिमल्स मतलब जो इमेजिनरी एनिमल्स है, नॉट माइथोलॉजिकल, आई डोंट लाइक द वर्ड माइथोलॉजी। जैसे मकर होता है, व्याल होता है, ऐसे एनिमल्स का यूज होता था, जो अभी भी कांचीपुरम में होता है, जहाँ पे अभी भी द डिजाइन वोकैबुलरी स्टिल प्रीटी मच हिंदू ट्रेडिशनल। बट जहाँ जहाँ वीविंग क्लस्टर में वीवर्स कन्वर्ट हो गए और जहाँ जहाँ से रॉयल कोर्ट के लिए कपड़ा बनने लगा, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन बंगाल जामदनी और इन बनारस, वहाँ पे डिजाइन वोकेबलरी चेंज हो गई बिकॉज इस्लाम डजंट लाइक एनिमल मोटिव्स. वहाँ पे ज्यादा एब्स्ट्रैक्ट मोटिव्स आने लगे, वहाँ पे ज्यादा फ्लोरल मोटिव्स आने लगे, जैसे गार्डन के मोटिव्स आने लगे. देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन दैट, इट वाज जस्ट अ न्यू वे ऑफ डिजाइन. बट द degradation that happened during that rule was that the weavers lost their prestige. जो गिल्ड और जो ऑटोनॉमी थी वो चली गई और फिर शुरू हो गया कारखाना सिस्टम. कारखाना सिस्टम मतलब क्या कि एक रॉयल फैमिली तय करेगी ये इतने इतने वीवर सिर्फ हमारे लिए काम करेंगे. They would get money. They would get money because these people liked good clothing, right? The Islamic rulers, the Mughals, or even people before that were very fond of good living. So they would never repeat their clothes. So the weavers would always have enough work and they would get paid quite well. That was not the problem. But they lost the autonomy, they lost the prestige, they essentially became daily wage workers. किसी और के लिए काम करना, क्योंकि जो कारखानदार जो बताएगा या जो फैमिली जो बताएगी उतना कपड़ा उतना ही बनाना है, उसके सिवाय कुछ बनाने का आपको फ्रीडम नहीं है. एंड देयर इज नो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ कि बड़ा रिचुअल है, वो आपको सम्मान देते हैं फिर आपसे कपड़ा लेते हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. ये ऑर्डर पे बनता था, तो वो लोग काम करते थे, काम के लिए पैसा मिलता था. So from money and prestige, it came down to just money, no prestige. The weaver was turned into a daily wage worker. Then came the biggest disruption, which was the British rule. So when the British rule came to India, that was around the time when powerloom weaving started, and there were huge factories in Manchester, which were churning out cloth like at a much faster rate than handloom weavers could ever hope to complete. हो ही नहीं सकता था. एक आदमी एकदम प्लेन भी अगर कपड़ा बनाएगा तो जो कपड़ा बनाने के लिए एक व्यक्ति को दिन में 7 साल काम करके 3 दिन लगते हैं, ऐसे 300 कपड़े जो मशीन तो आपके आधे घंटे में बना देगी ना, तो आप कंपीट ही नहीं कर सकते हो. आपके रॉ मटेरियल की कॉस्ट वही रहेगी, लेकिन जो डेली वेज लेबर आप इस व्यक्ति को देते हो 3 दिन के लिए, दैट मशीन विल डू द वर्क इन लाइक अ फ्रैक्शन ऑफ सेकंड, राइट? So what the British did was, we all know this, we have studied this in history about India's economic ruin. They forced the Indian farmers to sell raw material at a cheap rate to the factories in Manchester and sell back the finished clothes. And not only that, they did a very clever and insidious thing. They realized that Indians would not buy their patterns and their designs. They are used to wearing clothes that look a certain way. So they actually send their people who would visit the weavers, and there was a guy, I forget his name right now. He actually collected samples from all over India from weavers. उसको काटा उसने और उसके books बनाए. Those books are there. One book is there in Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And those patterns were actually sold to the factories, and those factories started making the exact replicas of Indian clothes. Same design, but no copyright, same designs, but obviously machine made. So, and these were the markets, Indian markets are flooded by these products, and these products are obviously available at a much cheaper rate. Secondly, जो weaver कपड़ा बनाता था, उसका कंज्यूमर कौन था? उसका कंज्यूमर मेनली तो फार्मर था, क्योंकि भारत में तब तो वेरी एग्रेरियन इकोनॉमी थी. तो जो खरीदने वाला था उसको तो भिखारी बना दिया, क्योंकि that farmer was forced to cultivate indigo, the farmer was forced to cultivate cotton, and the raw material was sold to the factories at a very cheap rate. तो उसके पास बाइंग पावर नहीं रही, तो आपका कंज्यूमर ही चला गया, उसके पास ही पैसा नहीं है तो क्या खरीदेगा वो. Secondly, 90% of the raw material was exported. So आपके पास रॉ मटेरियल ही नहीं है अवेलेबल, तो आप जिस रॉ मटेरियल के लिए पहले 10 रुपया देके उसको खरीदते थे, अब उसको उसी रॉ मटेरियल के लिए आपको 50 रुपए देके खरीदना पड़ता है. तो ऑब्वियसली योर कॉस्ट ऑफ मेकिंग द टेक्सटाइल गोज मच हायर. तुम्हारा कंज्यूमर नहीं रहा, तुम्हारा कंज्यूमर गरीब हो गया, तुम्हारा कपड़ा महंगा हो गया, तो दोनों का मेल कैसे बैठेगा ना? हाउ विल यू फाइंड कस्टमर्स फॉर योर प्रोडक्ट? सो ऑब्वियसली दैट इज व्हाट हैपेंड. So then the weavers started weaving in like droves, especially in the central Indian belt, like in UP, in Bihar. In fact, William Bentinck का statement है कि the plains of India are scattered with the bleached bones of Indian weavers. ये मैं नहीं कह रही, ये ब्रिटिश वाइसरॉय कह रहा है, क्योंकि उसको भी दिख रहा है कि क्या हैवक किया. तो in just 50 years, when the British came to India, Indian cloth Indian cotton cloth and silk cloth was actually in demand the world over because those were the finest, the best woven, the most diaphanously woven, most softest textiles available, and the elite all over the world, in Europe, in Southeast Asia, everywhere, they only wanted clothes made in Bharat because those are obviously best clothes. And a lot of cloth was imported out of India because it was India's best products like Indian spices. In 50 years, it all got destroyed. Our exports stopped, our imports increased, and India just went from producers to consumers.
पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस फिर क्या हुआ कि हम फिर भी उसको रिवाइव करने में रहे?
Pre-independence, and weaving is very intuitively connected with our conscious as a civilization, which is why Gandhi did a very smart thing. He made khadi, that is basically hand spinning and hand weaving, a symbol of Indian freedom struggle, okay, largely. So that brought the attention back to this because we had lost this, and जो डेली कशमकश आपको खाने के लिए ही पैसे नहीं हैं, तो आप वस्त्रकला या वीविंग या आर्ट्स एंड क्राफ्ट की थोड़े बात करोगे. You need to have a very powerful metaphor, right? Exactly. So that metaphor was kind of used in the liberation movement, with weaving as a metaphor. So that brought back the attention. After Indian independence, there was a Ministry of Textile and they tried to revive it. But the thing is, it was such a subsidy, my baap sarkar wala economy that traditional stereotype, which I absolutely hate, पुअर गरीब वीवर जो हमेशा माँ बाप सरकार पे डिपेंडेंट होता है और जो हमेशा किसी उसको उसके पास खाने के लिए पैसे नहीं है, वो किसी गरीब झोपड़े में वो वीविंग का काम करता है, दैट काइंड ऑफ इमेज, जो सत्यजीत रे वाला पॉवर्टी पॉर्न का इमेज ना, वो वीवर्स के बारे में आज भी है. एंड तो स्टोरीज आर सेइंग पेडल.
तो पर आज क्या ये सत्य नहीं है
ना? बट ये सत्य इसलिए है कि उस इकोनॉमी को हमेशा से यही माँ बाप सरकार के ऊपर ही डिपेंडेंट किया ना. और ये जो सब्सिडीज दी हुई होती थी, वो सब्सिडीज वीवर को डायरेक्ट नहीं मिलती थी. डायरेक्ट कैश ट्रांसफर तो अब शुरू हो गया मोदी सरकार में. पहले क्या होता था, यू हैड टू फॉर्म अ कोऑपरेटिव. सो द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट वुड डिस्पर्स, एंड वीविंग इज एक्चुअली अ स्टेट सब्जेक्ट. सो मान लो कि यू आर अ वीवर इन कराईकुडी इन तमिलनाडु. आपको अगर सब्सिडी चाहिए तो पहले तो आपको डायरेक्ट नहीं मिलेगी, आपको एक कोऑपरेटिव बनानी पड़ेगी बाकी के वीवर्स के साथ मिलके. वो कोऑपरेटिव को पैसे कौन देगा? उस स्टेट का एपेक्स कोऑपरेटिव, दैट इज इन तमिलनाडु केस इट्स कोऑपटेक्स. कोऑपटेक्स को पैसे कौन देगा? एक तो राज्य सरकार देगी और ये तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट देगी. तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट से पहले स्टेज 1 में पैसा आएगा एपेक्स कोऑपरेटिव में. तो यू नो हाउ पोरस दिस होल सब्सिडी गेम वाज. सो आधा पैसा तो आई थिंक इट वाज राजीव गांधी हु सेड इट ना, कि 1 रुपया जब सरकार से आता है तो ओनली 5 पैसा goes back to the final beneficiary, something like that. So the money that was dispersed at the central level, वो तो स्टेट लेवल पे जाते जाते ही आधी होती थी. उसके बाद वो जो कोऑपरेटिव तक आती थी, that was even lesser. And soon people found out that they could just, a family, if they are politically connected, they have 10 people in their family, they would register all 10 of them as weavers, form a cooperative, get the money, and that money would essentially go back to the same family. Whereas जो डेली वेजेस पे काम कर रहा है, उसके पास तो ये सब्सिडी पहुंचती नहीं.
To simplify it, I think rather popularly known as Khadi Gram Udyog. Is that the kind of setup that the government imposed on?
I'm not going to question the intentions. The intentions were right. They did
right. That तरीका ही नहीं रहा.
Exactly.
And which is why even post independence, what I understand is they continue to poor life.
And now what is happening is, it's not that now there are no weavers, there are enough weavers, but now अब एक अलग problem आया है. अब उस profession को prestige कम होती जा रही है. That is one reason. It's no longer now the lack of money.
So more about prestige.
Yes. So if you go to, for example, Kanchipuram, you will see most of the weavers there are 40 and above. Okay. जो उनके बच्चे हैं, जो उनको आती है weaving, लेकिन उनके साथ जो लड़के हैं, उनको लड़कियां नहीं मिलती, because they consider the weaving business as low prestige. उनको शहर में मोटरसाइकिल पे बैठ के ऑफिस में काम करने वाला कोई चाहिए. So that is another reason. So it's all very complex and it's all very interlinked, you know. But having said that, there are clusters like Upada, because those are wedding sarees, and wedding sarees will always be in demand. People will always get married, and Indians invest a lot of emotion in the wedding ceremony. So वो शादी के जो कपड़े हैं, विवाह के जो एकदम silk या those really good clothes, opulent clothes, those clothes will always have a market. So Upada is a cluster where people who are not even from the weaving community, they are sensing the demand, they are joining government courses, they are learning weaving, and they are entering, they are taking bank loans and starting their own looms. But that is rare. There are few other clusters like that. There's a cluster in Odisha called Gopalpur. I love going to that place because all the weavers there are under the age of 30 and they're brimming with enthusiasm. They're willing to learn new things, they're willing to experiment, they're willing to try new things. और मतलब मेरे बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स हैं उसमें, तो वो मुझे कभी कभी बोलते रहते हैं कि आपको कोई डिजाइन है which can be converted, and they have learned that you take any design, you convert it into a graph,
Very tailor-made,
very
custom
tailor-made
made,
and very
custom
customized.
Oh.
That is another biggest advantage of handloom cloth.
And it's a big business opportunity to
Yes.
come to think of
And
it.
you can have one sari. Like I have an arrangement, I have a legal arrangement with the weaver. I can give him design and say कि बस मेरे लिए बना. उसको 3 बनानी पड़ती हैं because he has to dye the warp accordingly. But 3 saris. And I say after this, you're not going to make this design for anybody ever.
Oh.
And it is possible.
Acha.
But in power loom, it is not possible. In power loom, once the design is programmed into the machine, that design will churn out like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. But here that customization is possible. And especially in designs, okay, the color, you have to have the 3 waft. But if you're doing the extra weft design, I can actually say you will make only one sari like this and you will not repeat this. And please sign a contract for me. I will pay you more for it. It's possible.
That's a very interesting input again for people who love collecting sarees.
Secondly, अगर आज की बात करोगे ना आप, तो डिस्कोर्स में सारा होता है I want to be different, I want to be unique, I want to be myself.
So why not
अगर
try
इतना
something?
है, so then why is everybody wearing the cookie cutter outfits of blue jeans and white shirt? आप किसी भी कॉलेज में जाओ, it looks like everybody starts looking like somebody else. No, they're all wearing grey and black t-shirts. I've got nothing against Western outfit. Let me be clear, but I'm saying that it after a point I cannot distinguish between the students because they look exactly the same. And they fight against uniforms in college. That is a fun thing. So they say 11th, 12th mein humko uniform nahi chahiye. We should have the freedom to wear what you want. And then you go to a classroom and you will see out of 50 students, 30 students are wearing the same jeans. Or grey t-shirt, blue jeans, or black t-shirt, blue jeans, which is a very practical outfit. I'm not saying it's not. But I'm saying that it defeats the whole be different, be unique, have your own sense of style, have your own style statement. वाला logic कहीं पे तो defeat हो रहा है ना. मैं ये साड़ी पहन रही हूँ, I don't think anybody in that hall, they may be wearing other Sambalpuri sarees, but no one else will be wearing the same design. This is where, that is my USP. This is where I am different, no? And that you can do only with hand woven textiles.
शिफाली जी, आप अगर हम वापस से थोड़ा सा इस बारे में बात करें कि जैसे मेरा भी, आपका तो काफी पुराना अनुभव रहा है साड़ियों के साथ, बट मेरा भी काफी रीसेंट अनुभव रहा, और धीरे 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 मम्मी से समझी और अपने आप जब खरीदने गई तो थोड़ा बहुत थ्रेड्स और वीव्स का समझ आने लगा. तो जैसे महेश्वरी सुना, संबलपुरी सुना, काथा पहना हुआ है मैंने, बांधनी, लहरिया, इन सब शब्दों से धीरे धीरे समझ आने लगी कि अच्छा ये हमारे ट्रेडिशनल वीव्स हैं, बहुत हजारों सालों से चले आ रहे हैं. थोड़ा सा इस पे क्विकली अगर किसी को नोट्स बनाने हो कि मुझे कल को जाके साड़ी कलेक्ट करनी है, what are the right weaves and right prints which actually define the Indian traditional?
देखो, there are 3 different ways in which you can pattern textiles. One is block printing, rough area, one is embroidery, and one is weaving, right? बाकी तो मोटा मोटी ये 3 एरियाज में आप टेक्सटाइल्स को क्लब कर सकते हो. बाकी तो जो सारा रीजनल जो वेरिएशंस है, that is about how a saree is woven, what kind of technique is used for embroidery, or where the article is block printed and how it is block printed. For example, the Pedana Kalamkari block printing, the designs are very different from say block printing done in Bagh. in Madhya Pradesh, which is very different from block printing done in Sanganer. Even though the technique is the same, they all make wooden blocks, they all make a set of wooden blocks, and they use colors. The carvings and the motifs on these blocks are different. They also have their own block makers, which for hundreds of years have been making blocks for the same weaving cluster, which is why they are very unique and different.
And that is influenced from their traditions that are
From their traditions, from their surroundings, from nature, what kind of designs that you see around you. Like for example, the Pedana Kalamkari will be very dense because the vegetation there is very dense. Whereas in Rajasthan it will be sparse because that is the background, that is the geography that the block printers of that area are familiar with. So everything is design doesn't happen out of vacuum. Motifs don't just come out because suddenly I have this. We are not all Salvador Dali. That suddenly you get a bizarre dream and that is represented as art. Art has some kind of back thought in your mind. The inspiration can come from nature. Inspiration can come from scriptures. Inspiration can come from literature. Inspiration can come from temple architecture, and there are a lot of places. I specialize in that. Not temple sari. Temple sari is different. I'm talking about motifs. So, for example, a peacock which is woven on a Kanchipuram sari will be a copy of the peacock on the Pallava temples of Kanchipuram. So, if you compare that temple architecture, that temple peacock and the peacock on the Kanchipuram sari, you will see that it's an exact copy because that was the inspiration. That was what the weavers saw every day. That was what the weavers tried to incorporate. If you see the peacock in Banarsi, it will be very different from the Pallava peacock because their peacock inspirations are different. If you see peacocks in the Odisha saris and if you see the peacocks in the temples of Odisha, you will see that there are distinct similarities. For example, if you want to see the Patan Patola and if you want to see the double ikat in the Patan Patola and if you go and visit the stepwell of Patan Patola and if you see those sculpture friezes on the well, you will find that it's the same pattern which is replicated in the saris. So, there is that kind of continuity of culture again. You cannot divorce design and motifs from your surroundings or from your culture or from your civilizational ethos. So, this if you asking me what are the 5 iconic saris that everyone should have, then I would say if your budget is no constraint, buy a Patan Patola, buy a Muga silk from Assam and buy a pure Jari Paitani from Maharashtra and buy a pure Jari Kanchipuram, Puravai Kanchipuram. If money is not a constraint, if you are so lucky.
दूसरा क्वेश्चन, हैंडलूम जो साड़ीज है उसमें और आजकल बहुत सारे जो है फेक हैंडलूम्स भी बेचते हैं, उसमें डिफरेंस कैसे पता करें?
बहुत सारे टोटके हैं उसके, but I'll tell you the easiest one. Easiest one is you reverse the sari and check on the reverse side. If you see that each motif is different and it is kind of like when the motif is done, there are no cut threads and the motif turns, the thread turns on itself. And if you pull at a thread, it doesn't come out. That means that sari is 100% handloom because machine cannot replicate that. What machine does is it replicates, there is a whole line of motifs and that's a continuous thread. It's called fekwa because it just throat, fekna. And then after that, behind they cut the individual motifs. So you see those loose threads. That can also be done by handloom because it's the easier way to do it. So if you see the cut threads, does not necessarily mean that it's machine made. Then there are other ways you have to look at. But if the motifs are independent of each other, if the thread is rounded and if you pull at a thread, if the motif doesn't come out, that is 100% handloom. Now we come to the broken threads. Now you want to find out if there is a broken thread, but there is a possibility that the sari could be either power loom or handloom. Then what do you do? So you need to invest in a simple microscope, जो 7th 8th में biology के class में लेके घूमते थे, and just look at the fabric through that microscope. See, handloom is a very imperfect craft. No matter how good you are, it's हाथ का काम, right? So there will be subtle variations. कहीं पे तो थ्रेड ऊपर आया होगा या कहीं पे तो छोटा सा एक नॉट होगा या कहीं पे तो 2 थ्रेड्स के बीच में गैप होगा जो नेकेड आई से नहीं दिखता है बट जो सिंपल माइक्रोस्कोप से आपको दिखेगा. So in that case you can be pretty much sure that it's handloom. There is a power loom one that will be uniform because the machine doesn't make mistakes, right? It moves at the same speed, it moves at the same pressure. So it will be absolutely uniform. Then there are other things like machine made textile will have that faintest whiff of machine oil. But उसके लिए आपका nose तैयार होना चाहिए. I mean that comes only with experience. I mean if I tell you or even if I give it to you to smell, you probably won't. You will, but other people might not be able to do it.
Quick tip on preservation.
Sun your saris, especially silk saris, and don't wash them. It's very counterintuitive, but you should never wash silk saris. You should never give them for dry cleaning for sure. If at all you want to wash, see, for example, saris never touch your body directly, right? You're wearing underskirt or whatever. The only time they touch your body is when you tuck in. So, or if something spills on the sari and it becomes dirty, or the lower part, that's what the sari fall is for. But even if the fall gets dirty, or even if the tuck-in part gets dirty, or even if something gets spilled, wash only that part with hand using Rita.
Oh,
इसको English में क्या बोलते हैं पता नहीं, soap nuts.
interesting. I never knew.
Or you can use human shampoo. You can use a regular Sunsilk or Clinic Plus or any human shampoo. But just wash that little part by hand and dry it in shade and sun it at least. And they say that you should sun it in the morning sunlight for a couple of hours or in the evening sunlight. In Marathi, there is a saying called Sadhana Chaitratla ऊन दाखवायला पाहिजे. So in the first couple of weeks of Chaitra, that sunlight is the best for silk saris. For cotton, if you like your saris very neat, then they need to be pressed, they need to be starched. Otherwise, you can wash and wear also. Nowadays, with mercerized cotton, it is possible. But cotton saris eventually will fade with time. That will always happen, especially if you dry them in the sun. You cannot avoid that. But those faded soft saris also have their own charm. Most of my beautiful childhood memories are sleeping, cuddling up to one of my mom's old, much washed cotton sari. I used to carry it everywhere with me like a security blanket.
शिफाली जी, इस बात पर ना एक थोड़ा सा पॉलिटिकल सवाल पूछूंगी. Very recently I saw someone post an old picture of yours in western attire और उस पे बहुत ट्विटर पे संग्राम मचा था. थोड़ा सा स्कैरी है और perturbing है क्योंकि even with wearing saris today, I continue to wear western attire. ये जो पूरी एक रिसर्जेंस जो हुआ है अपने इंडिक कल्चर को, आइडेंटिटी को लेके, उसको स्ट्रेंथन करने को लेकर, और क्योंकि ऑलरेडी बहुत कम महिलाएं हैं जो बहुत वोकल हैं अपनी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी के ऊपर, जब आप या कोई आप जैसी महिला बात करती हैं तो ये एक बहुत इजी टूल यूज होता है कि खुद तो वेस्टर्न पहन रही हैं और बाकियों को बोल रही हैं कि साड़ी और बिंदी लगाएं.
देखिए देखो, let me correct you. I have never ever said that a Hindu woman or an Indian woman should wear a sari or a bindi at all times. Never. You please find that statement for me. I will publicly apologize. In any of my interviews, even in the No Bindi No Business campaign that I ran, the bindi was used as a symbol of Hindu culture, and that was the last symbol to go. That is why I had said specifically in advertising that is aimed at the Indian consumer during Hindu festivals, and that during Hindu festivals is very important. And in those ads, I would like my feelings, my icons, my traditions, my religion to be respected. If you are asking me to buy a sari or a jewelry for Diwali, then you better understand that Deepavali is a Hindu festival and then you give it respect accordingly. That was the limited point. I have never said, I don't give fatwas. I am not a mullah. I have never said that women should wear only these kind of clothes or they should not wear western clothes or whatever. I am saying do not stigmatize the sari. Isn't feminism about a woman's right to wear what she wants, regardless of what image you are perceived as? I am against typecasting a woman who is wearing a sari and who is wearing a bindi as old-fashioned, traditional, uneducated, housewife, and these are the pejorative terms that are thrown at me often. I have traveled in 30 countries solo, and in every country I travel, I carry at least 2 saris. I have climbed Machu Picchu in a sari also, and with great pride, because saris make great pictures, and nowadays with Instagram, they make really. So my point is this mental thing that when you want to travel solo, is check the images that they use in travel articles of women traveling solo, and you tell me how many women are shown wearing a sari. They'll all be wearing Western clothes. They'll all be carrying cameras. They'll all be, wearing trekking boots, which are very practical. I want trekking boots with a sari. Why can't a sari-clad woman carry a camera and be on top of Machu Picchu and be a great example, a great illustration for a single woman traveler? That is my point. And I love it when all these trolls, they follow my timeline and they keep going through my pictures. I mean, seriously, people have nothing better to do. So sometimes I can't find my old pictures. No, I tell them only, hey, there is a picture. हाँ, वो एक shorts में picture है, वो जरा ढूंढ के दिखा दो ना भैया, अभी तुम्हारे पास इतना free time है तो.
How do you see the next generation or the generations of sari evolving now, and especially in terms of not just the Indian, landscape, but also internationally?
See, internationally, among Indian Americans especially, and Indians, second generation Indians in many countries, they have this lingering desire to go back to their roots. So many of them are actually going back to the sari and wearing it for their graduation. People who have never even lived in India. And I get a lot of calls or a lot of messages from that demographic saying that it's my graduation. So suggest me a sari that I can wear with ease and which doesn't slip off but which looks classy or whatever. That's my part-time consultancy. Yes, I get a lot of queries like that, and it makes me feel genuinely happy. One innovation that is happening is a ready-to-wear sari. This is a very, very practical innovation actually. It is. Yes, because when you wear it, it's so much more comfortable for my daughter's generation. It's like the bottom thing is like a skirt and the dupatta you can just drape around it. So I'm not against innovations at all. It looks pretty cool actually. Plus it has the added advantage that you can stitch in a pocket and you can put your phone in there. So then you can be truly hands-free. So wo to hota rahega. That is a good thing. As long as it gives a new life to your saris. Though I personally feel that a draped sari looks the best. That's because I'm comfortable with draping. But if the younger generation uses the ready-to-wear sari as a starter pack, good for them. Fantastic. It's also a business idea for a lot of companies actually. There is a company, I forgot its name, but they're pioneered this.
Yeah, they've already started.
Yes.
We do keep getting pop-ups
Yeah.
on Instagram about it. But thank you so much, Shefali ji. It's been such an enriching journey to have this conversation with you. Because, frankly speaking, today when I walk into any meeting, any event wearing a sari, I feel this sense of power and confidence that I usually don't in the Western attire. Having said that, quite like you, it is not that I also believe that हमें और कुछ नहीं पहनना चाहिए. At the end of the day, the choice should lie with us as to what we want to wear, when we want to wear it. लेकिन मेरी नानी ये भी कहती थी कि जिस जगह पे हो उस हिसाब से ड्रेसअप करो. तो आई थिंक इसी नोट के साथ आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
I think I'll end on one note.
Yes.
My sons, from the time they were, my daughter also, but my sons, from the time they were 8 or 10, they always compliment me when I'm wearing a sari. Or rather, they only compliment me when I'm wearing a sari. When I'm wearing a Western outfit or when I'm wearing a salwar kurta, they never ever tell me that you're looking good. But when I wear a sari, and it's not something that I've taught them to say, but they genuinely tell me that you're looking very nice in the sari. And they've grown up seeing me wear saris, and they have now by force learned to identify weaves. So they know that this is a Kanta or this is a Odisha sari, which is a good thing. Again, I have not sat them down and said ki, beta class leti hu tumhari. Aisa nahi hai. But genuinely they feel, but probably also because when I wear a sari, I feel like dressing up. I feel like, accessorizing. I feel like putting on some makeup, looking good, and that confidence also shows. And when I'm in jeans or t-shirts, I'm in a jeans and t-shirt. I don't really feel the need to,
it's too casual.
Yeah, it's too casual. So maybe because of that,
Yeah.
but somewhere it's like they notice, and the new generation does notice. And I've seen this everywhere. Once I was walking into Delhi airport, and this is not now. Now you can say that, oh, they think you're Bhenji, so that's why they're giving you respect. But this was like 15, 20 years ago. I was in my early 30s. And when I walked in, two flights were late or something like that. The airport was like desperately crowded. There were no seats available. And I was really tired after a long day. So I just sat on the floor on the carpet. So 3 people actually woke up, and there were other women walking in. Nobody was offering them seats. But 3 guys woke up and, got up from their seats and they said, "Ma'am, why are you sitting on the floor? Please sit on the chair." And that is not because of me. That is because of the sari. Because it is very obvious. I was the only woman who was wearing a sari. There were other women passing who were wearing salwar kurtas and jeans or whatever. And nobody really offered them a seat. Maybe it is the way they are conditioned. That's fine. I'm not commenting on that. But the point is, you do get a differential treatment if you wear a sari in India.
On that note, thank you so much, Shefali ji. Thank you for making time for the Indic Pen. And we look forward to having more detailed conversations on sari, which is now also my favorite subject to talk about. Very soon we'll meet again, talking to you more about saris.